Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the mel0n Review. Today is a very special video as X-Raypad has released their first ever glass skates in the form of the brand new Meteorite Dots. Now we've seen X-Raypad experiment with other skate materials before, which is how the Obsidian Pro skates came to be, but glass is a very finicky material, specifically when it comes to making glass skates. But for this being X-Raypad's first foray into the glass skate market, they've done a pretty good job, but the Meteorite Dots are very quirky and don't perform as you'd expect a glass skate to, depending on some unique variables. But we're going to talk all about these quirks as well as the good and the bad of X-Raypad's newest skates in today's episode of the mel0n Review. But before we get into it, I did want to say a big thank you to X-Raypad for sending over the meteorites for review. As always, this video will be fully subtitled and timestamps are available down in the video description. And if you enjoyed the review, be sure to leave a like on this video and get subscribed. Alright, to start off, let's talk about pricing and versions. The Meteorite skates retail for $16.99 USD on X-Raypad's site. On third-party retailers such as Lethal Gaming Gear and Potent Gaming, they'll be the full retail price of I believe $19.99 USD, but you can use code mel0n to save yourself a little bit off the Meteorite skates or anything else from those retailers. Currently there are three colors available: black, red, and a blink colorway, which are designed to look like green cat eyes. Mrs. mel0n actually came up with the name for this design, so if you end up getting the blink dots, be sure to tag me on X so I can show Mrs. mel0n. In terms of unboxing, each set of the Meteorite skates comes in a special packaging, similar to the packaging we saw for the Air series skates, just fancied up a little bit. Each set of the Meteorite skates includes 2 adhesive removal wipes, 2 alcohol wipes, and a new special little plastic remover tool that's very reminiscent of a pry bar you'd see come with like a phone repair kit. And of course, that also includes the meteorites themselves. Each set of Meteorite skates includes 8 dot skates. Now, because I have a pre-production unit of the meteorites, unfortunately I don't have this plastic tool I can show you here today, but if you purchase a set for yourself, it will have it included, and you can use the flat edges of this tool to easily remove the skates from the bottom of your mouse, which is a great accessory to include specifically for glass skates. Now I wanted to make a quick note regarding the adhesive removal wipes. You should only use these wipes on the base of your mouse for removing old skate adhesive. Do not wipe your mouse's top shell with these, as they have a chance to corrode or damage your mouse's coating, so be sure to only use these on the bottom of your mouse. Now in terms of skate dimensions, the Meteorite skates are the same 6.5mm width as the previously released X-Raypad Dots, but their height is very unique as they measure in at 0.99mm tall, making them the tallest skate X-Raypad has released to date. Now unlike the Air series skates, which were a little taller due to the added layer of SMPF foam, the reason why the Meteorites are so tall is their unique shaping. All of X-Raypad's previously released dot skates were a 2.5D shaping, having more of a cylindrical shape with a rounded top. The Meteorites on the other hand have a new 17.5D arc shaping that trades the cylindricalness of the older dots in favor of a more spherical design. And because of this more spherical design, the Meteorites can sink much deeper into mousepads than the 2.5D dot shaped skates could, and they also have significantly more surface area. So the Meteorite dots interact with mousepad surfaces very differently than what X-Raypad's previous dot skates did, which gives them a very unique performance profile as I mentioned earlier, but I'll talk more about how this unique shaping affects the performance of these skates more in depth later in this video. In terms of skate material, the Meteorite dots are made out of a high-strength aluminosilicate glass. This glass has a Mohs hardness of 7, so the skates themselves are highly durable and resistant to scratching and other wear and tear that would normally affect the performance of non-glass skates. The durability of this material also gives the Meteorite dots an infinite lifespan. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the video, glass is a very finicky material as you often need to coat glass with a special coating to raise or lower its friction properties. This is how most glass pads are made nowadays, as the coating applied to the surface is what makes the pad faster or slower, not the glass itself. The same concept applies to most glass skates, as many will have some kind of a coating applied to them to reduce the skate's friction, so they'll have that air hockey-like glide you've come to expect from a glass skate. But X-Raypad has decided against coating the Meteorite skates. Instead, they've been polished to a jewelry grade. Now, I'm not exactly sure what this means in terms of performance, as X-Raypad doesn't clarify what this jewelry grade polishing does. I assume that X-Raypad is polishing the skates instead of coating them, as polishing the skate material to be smoother will lower the friction of the skates, achieving the same end goal that X-Raypad could have done by applying a coating to the Meteorite skates. Now, I'm actually quite happy that X-Raypad went the polishing route here for the Meteorite skates, as we've seen a lot of glass skates in the past have a lot of issues with their coatings wearing out over time, which caused the skates to become slow and inconsistent, something you don't expect a glass skate to do. So by polishing the meteorite dots, X-Raypad can avoid the coating issues while also allowing them to fine-tune the polishing to give the skates a wide variety of friction coefficients, as well as ensure the skate's performance will stay consistent over time, matching the skate's infinite lifespan. Now, in regards to pad compatibility, historically speaking, X-Raypad skates have been pretty universal in terms of their usage, but since the meteorite skates are glass and have a very unique shaping, their pad compatibility is very different from what we've seen on X-Raypad's other skates. Because of the skate's polished glass material, you can't use them on any hard surface the same or a higher hardness as the glass itself, as the glass will either be damaged or will damage the pad surface. So you can't use the meteorite dots on metal, resin, or glass mouse pads, which means that just like a lot of other glass skates, they're only compatible with fabric pads. However, due to their unique shaping, there are further compatibility issues here with the meteorites. All of X-Raypad's past dot skates weren't usable on very soft fabric pads like the X-Raypad Cerberus Extra Soft or the Infinity Mice Ruin, for example, as the skates themselves weren't tall enough nor had enough surface area to counteract the softness and depth of the pad. So when you press the skates into the pad, they sink into the surfacing, causing your mouse to bottom out. And even though the meteorite skates are taller than all of X-Raypad's previous dot skates, as well as have a new 17.5D shaping, the skates share the same compatibility issues with soft fabric pads as the past dots, and because of this, the meteorite dots are only usable on hard to medium firmness soft pads like the Coruscant Samurai, Focus Ambition, Saturn Pro Firm, and Razor Strider. Alright, now that we've gone over what pads you can and can't use the meteorite dots on, let's talk about their performance next. Overall, the meteorite dots are a very solidly performing skate, but as I said at the top of the video, the dots perform unlike any glass skate I've tested. As it turns out, this unique 17.5D shaping on the dots combined with the polishing that X-Raypad has done here makes the meteorite dots very controlled, the polar opposite of the air hockey-like feeling you'd expect from a glass skate. But this isn't going to be the story for everyone. Some people will find the meteorite dots extremely quick, others will find them balanced, and others controlled. So what gives with this highly variable performance here for the meteorite dots? Over my testing, I've narrowed it down to 3 reasons. Number 1, the 17.5D shaping, as I mentioned earlier, has much more surface and contact area than the past 2.5D dots had, so the skates make much more contact with a pad surface, resulting in significantly more friction, but this will depend on the force applied to the skates. Number 2, the user's grip weight and force also affects the feeling of the meteorite skates. Lighter grips like a fingertip grip that don't push the skates into a pad surfacing will cause the meteorites to feel extremely fast, more akin to the performance of the X-Raypad Jade skates. But on the other hand, heavier grips like palm and claw grips that force the skates deeper into a pad surface will cause the skates to be very controlled, more akin to the performance of the Obsidian skates. And lastly, number 3, the pad type you use the meteorite dots on will also significantly affect their performance, much more so than on other glass skates. So depending on the pad type you use, either speed, control, or hybrid, the friction values of the meteorite dots will be skewed even more, leading to further variability in their performance. From my testing, using the meteorites on the Coruscant Samurai, Focus Ambition, Saturn Pro Firm, and the Razor Strider with my heavier claw grip, the meteorite skates felt extremely controlled, pretty much one for one with the X-Raypad Obsidian Air dot skates. The only difference being a slight difference in the dynamic friction, and because of this, the meteorite dots felt the best for static and flicking aiming rather than tracking, the polar opposite of what you'd expect a glass skate to perform like. But for lighter grips like a fingertip grip, using the meteorite skates on the same pads, the skates felt significantly faster, feeling more akin to an X-Raypad Jade Air dot, just with a higher braking friction. With this lighter grip style, the meteorite skates were much more suited for more dynamic and tracking focused aiming, and they were less ideal for static and flicking performance. Now, due to the wide range of performance variabilities here on the meteorite dots, they do take some time to get accustomed to as they're quite unique, and while I like the performance of the meteorite skates as I preferred more controlled skates like the Obsidian skates, if you're looking for that air hockey-like glide you'd see on other glass skates, you won't find that here on the meteorite dots as they're much more controlled across the board than any other glass skate I've used. Now, one other unique thing about the meteorite skates aside from their highly variable performance is their feedback. Now, I'm not referring to audio feedback, which I commonly talk about when I review skates. In this situation, I'm referring to physical feedback. Since the Meteorite skates are made out of glass and there's no dampening layer between the skate and the base adhesive, the harder skate material will transfer the feeling of a pad surfacing through your mouse very strongly. Now on most pads this won't be an issue, but on rougher surface textured pads like the Razer Strider for example, you'll feel the rougher surface through your mouse, which can make it a little jarring and can make your aim feel a little inconsistent due to the rougher feeling. So just be aware of this if you're making a rougher pad like the Strider or any other highly textured pad, as you will feel the surface texture very strongly through these harder skates. If you are using a rougher pad, you want a skate that has similar performance to the Meteorites, just get the X-Raypad Obsidian Air Dots or Donuts, as they have the SMPF layering, which will significantly reduce the physical feedback you'll feel. You can also go for the Jade Air Dots or Donuts as well, as they have the same layering. Those skates will just be faster because they're 100% PTFE. And lastly, I wanted to talk about reusability. Now, since the Meteorite skates are glass, which isn't a very malleable material, the Meteorite skates are semi-reusable, but it will heavily depend on the mouse you install them on. On flat-based mice like my PM1 here, the skates are very difficult to remove, even with a removal tool like what's included with the retail versions. And if you do somehow manage to get the skates off the flat base of your mouse, there's a pretty high chance you're going to warp or wrinkle the skate's adhesive with the removal tool. So when you go to reinstall the Meteorite skates, they won't sit completely flat due to the damaged adhesive. But on mice with a raised skate base like the X2 V2 skate bases or the honeycomb material under the base skate cutouts, it's significantly easier to remove the Meteorite skates without damaging the adhesive. So while the Meteorite skates are technically reusable, in reality the reusability of the skates will heavily vary from mouse to mouse, but seeing as they're glass and technically speaking the skates have an infinite lifespan, this isn't the biggest issue. But if you wanted to move your Meteorite dots from an old mouse to a new one, it's going to be a little difficult to remove them depending on the skate base. Alright, well in closing, overall the X-Raypad Meteorite Dots are a very interesting skate, but I don't quite know what to think of them. On one hand, I like the skates personally, but the insane range of variability in the skates' performance makes them tricky to recommend, as your experience won't be the same as mine even if you're using them on the same pads. Also keep in mind the Meteorite skates have the worst pad compatibility out of all of X-Raypad's skate offerings, so it's even harder for me to recommend them in that regard. Speaking from a cost perspective, the Meteorite skates also don't make a lot of sense, as for $16.99 USD you only get 8 dot skates, whereas with the Jade Air or Obsidian Air skates you get 40 of them. Of course, they will have a significantly shorter lifespan than the Meteorite skates do, but their performance is much more defined and have significantly less variability than the Meteorite skates. So while I'm happy to see X-Raypad experiment with glass skates, it's tricky as they already have a massive catalog of skates that cover every type of performance profile. So when they make a new skate like the Meteorites, they feel kind of pointless. Again, I like the Meteorite Dots, but they don't perform like other glass skates do, nor do they have the same fine-tuned performance profiles that their other skates have. That said though, I do hope that X-Raypad keeps experimenting with their glass skates, as with some tweaks I think the Meteorite skates could be very good, but in their current skate I think they're too niche for me to fully recommend. They're a great skate to experiment with, but if you want consistency you're much better off going with X-Raypad's other skate offerings like the Obsidian Air or Jade Air skates. But if you'd like to learn more about the X-Raypad Meteorite Dots, I will have their product page linked in the video description for you. But that's going to be everything for today's episode of the mel0n Review. Thank you very much again to X-Raypad for sending over the Meteorite Dots for review. I greatly appreciate it. Big thank you to our channel members Yuki89 Prince, It Was Luck, Lunaris, and Mark World. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you'd like to become a member here and support what I'm doing here on the channel with the in-depth reviews and the Teardown project, you can become a member here for only $2 a month. That is the best way to directly support the channel, so thank you very much in advance for your support. You can also help support the channel by using code mel0n with a 0 over at Mech Keys, Lethal Gaming Gear, Potent Gaming Gear, and TJ Exclusives to save yourself a couple dollars off your orders and help directly support the channel. Thanks again for watching my review of the X-Raypad Meteorite skates, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of the mel0n Review. Peace.